Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are having a good day. Welcome to a live version of The Casual Nerd with me and special guest Tony Polanco. Thank you for coming by, dude, to talk about the PS5 Showcase that we
Yeah, thanks for
witnessed.
having me on. Like we were discussing this. It's like, yo, we got to get on and discuss this because
Yeah.
there's a lot to say. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot to say about nothing. We'll get into it. Holy crap! Anyway, thanks for having me on. This is gonna be fun.
Oh, it will be. And hey, Peter, what's going on? Howdy, hipster and Tony. Hello, how are you doing? I
Hey,
hope
hey,
you're having a
hey.
good night. It is going to be interesting. So, the first thing that I want to be able to discuss first is what happened to the major games that were supposed to be there. That was one of the things that I noticed of where I thought it was cool that some indie stuff was there, but I also thought like, okay, we were supposed to see Silent Hill 2. We were supposed to see Wolverine. We were supposed to see Last of Us Fractions. What do you think happened though? Because
Oh, yeah, that's another
yeah,
thing that I says. But my thing is like, were those expected or is that what people wanted to see?
I think it
There's a
was a bit of
difference.
both.
Yeah, like again, before this show, I, I tweeted out that I'm like, keep your expectations low, people. Keep
Yeah.
them in check. And I wasn't just saying this because I had like any insider knowledge. I'm just going off of the fact that like most of these showcases, whether they be for Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, are almost always disappointing for me, right? So I was like, I'm not expecting much, and this was even lesser than I expect. I had no expectations. It was still lower. It was amazing.
What I
Like,
found
yeah,
surprising though was like why what like they haven't had a showing in 2 years, right? So when
yeah.
I looked at this, I was like, okay, like maybe 4 games out of the 30 some that were shown only piqued my interest. Like I personally I didn't like the first Alan Wake at all, and I thought that this was actually looking pretty good. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's like what exactly happened here? Like, yes, the showcase took a long time to do. We're not talking about the logistics of everything like that, just to put that into perspective. But
Yeah, no, but the thing is, like, think about how long the show took to get started,
Mhm.
right? Like, it was almost a good half an hour until we got Metal Gear Solid 3, right?
Exactly.
And before that, it was like you literally started the show with two service games. I don't even remember their
Yeah.
names anymore. Fair Games or something. Like it was and Helldivers too.
Yes.
Two service games off the bat. I'm like, what are we doing here right now? You know? And we didn't get Metal Gear. until like half an hour in. That was interesting about that is because that particular rumor had been going on for years. So many years. In fact, there was like the boy who cried wolf. I'm like, I don't believe any of this stuff until it happens. No, this is BS, and it turns out it's real. And this one is weird because on the one hand, Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite game of all time,
Oh,
but
wow.
I'm sick of remakes. That's all we've gotten this generation. Remakes, remakes,
Exactly.
remakes, remakes, remakes. So I'm like, you literally have my favorite game of all time remade. I'm like, that's bad. That's very bad,
And you
you
see, so many
know?
people can take that so many different ways because when I think of a remake, I'm thinking both good and bad things. Because when I saw that Silent Hill 2, for example, was going to be remade, I had a pit in my stomach. I'm just like, this was one of the best horror games that has ever been created. And now it's going to be remade. Who knows if it's going to be remade correctly? Like, there's nothing more important than having the original. And I feel if they mess that up, it will kind of mess it up for new players who are coming in and they'll think like, "Oh, this is what the original was." No, it's not.
Yeah, thankfully, we are gonna get the Metal Gear collection, which is the original game, as it always was. So we'll still get that, which is nice because that's something else I've wanted. I'm like, the last time we've had playable Metal Gear games, all of them
Yeah.
have been on PS3. We didn't get any collection on PS4 at all. So it's gonna be nice to finally get that. But of course, no, here's okay. I was gonna say we don't get Metal Gear Solid 4, right?
Mhm.
But this collection is part one, right?
Yeah.
It literally says part one. So maybe we'll get Metal Gear Solid 4. But the thing is, that was a PlayStation 3 exclusive. It was only ever made for that hardware. And it's very difficult to port because of the PS3 cell processor. So that'll be very interesting, right? Like if we that game, I'd probably be a little bit even more excited to get that because of the fact that wow, you finally got it off that only platform that it's actually on, and a game that we haven't been. So this is what I said on Twitter. I said because okay, there. Let me go back. 'Cause all my thoughts are just jumbled right now.
No,
Right,
you're good. You're good.
there's so much. Right, okay. There used to be a point in time when there was a clear distinction between a PlayStation Showcase and a PlayStation State of Play, right?
Exactly.
Showcase, you usually get one game or one theme and you run with it for like a good 20 minutes or something. Then the State of Play is just, hey, here's what we got coming right now. And it's just like a smorgasbord of stuff, right? This was somehow both,
That's what I found
right?
odd. I was like, they didn't need to make it that long either for what they were showing as well.
Yeah, and like if you would have had Spider-Man, which is stuff as a state of play,
Mhm.
I think people would have been mad regardless, but I think it would have been more forgiving because you would have the understanding going, okay, this is a state of play. We know it's not all gonna be bangers, but if you have something called a showcase, especially after 2 years of
Oh
people
yeah.
waiting, no, 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 no. This was not it at all, and I am both happy and sad to see the places and community rise up. Sad because it sucks that they have to rise up, but it's good that they are rising up because they're not just taking it. They're like fighting back. And I haven't seen any craziness when it comes to the toxic stuff, thankfully. But it's like I understand where they're coming from. Again, I went in with no expectations. So I'm not too bummed, but I understand where they're coming from. It's like we've been waiting for 2 years. We know you guys have all this stuff. Sony has all this stuff coming. We're gonna get some good shit and nothing
And that's the thing
except
too
for
of where
Spider Man.
like I feel like some PlayStation fans, not all of them, um, were starting to get a little bit complacent because they weren't seeing a showcase in over 2 years. So there was starting to get like the kind of okay, well, might not get anything, but at least let's see what they have going on. So that, like for a
Yeah.
lot of the people who are really enjoying the showcase, I don't take that away from them. That's fine, but also to be realistic because the fact of the matter is that when I saw so many people saying, "Oh, we can't criticize PlayStation for the showcase. We can't do this or that because they put so much work into it." I don't care how much work you put into something, it's still open for criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a stupid take on who said that. It's dumb.
Yeah,
Like
it was so
you
silly.
you worked hard. Just because you work hard on something doesn't mean it's good. It's silly. So yeah, that's stupid. But I've seen very little of that. Like the thing that really shocked me was Herman Holtz. Guerrilla Games. He went on Twitter after the fact just to thank people for watching and all that. And my man was getting cooked in the comments. I was
I
like,
saw that.
whoa. I was like, wow, that I've never seen that before from the PlayStation community. It's wild, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
So
I
yeah, but
just
I can't blame him. I can't blame him.
I just saw the comments right now. Oh, hi, Sals. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well too. Proud of you for continuing to do your thing in the gaming community. Of such a strong backbone. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you for everything. I love you. I love you too, girl. Thank you so much. But yeah, this actually leads into the next topic I wanted to discuss with the showcase. When it got to a certain point, I was like taking notes. I was like watching the entire thing. I was thinking to myself, there are a lot of live service games, a lot of them for a an event like this, because I remember like not even 5 years ago when you sat down for a PlayStation event, you were like it was all your attention was on that. There was drama, there was anticipation, emotions were running high. I feel like nowadays with showcases, you already know basically what you're going to get before the showcase even starts.
Yeah. No, you're right. And yeah, no, you're right. And because Sony, they announce their games. I mean, all publishers do,
Mm,
and these games take so long to come out.
yeah.
Like you're only gonna get the same games over and over again. Even this going in, we knew Spider-Man was gonna be there,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
that anticipation, that hype isn't there. I remember even back before, this was before, the COVID days and stuff during these events, like, they had one year, I think it was 2016, where it was a blowout, a bunch of crazy stuff at E3, and then come the next year, it was literally a repeat. Then the next year after that, it was also a repeat. Like, yo, what are we doing here? Because these games take so long. That's something Sean Layden, formerly of Sony, said. That's like if you have these massive AAA games with these big budgets in these long development cycles, you're not going to get games very often, and we're seeing that. And then on top of that, you got to throw in COVID, the lockdowns and all that. That messed everything up too. We're almost 3 years into this generation,
Yeah.
and we're still waiting for it to start. But then I thought about it, and this is kind of crazy. Last generation, very similar story. The PS3, excuse me, PS4, Xbox One came out in 2013, right?
Mhm.
The generation arguably didn't really start until 2017.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it looks like we're seeing a repeat of that.
Well, that's an interesting part that I'm seeing. I saw in some of the below parts of like the advertisements when they said the release date of the game. It's a PS5 and PS4. I almost threw a fit. I was like, "What? Why are we still doing this for PS4? That generation is over. It's done." I'm so incredibly, and this is part where I got like really pissed off. I was just like, "Listen, I get that the like people want to be able to do third party stuff. They want to be able to put it, backwards compatible for PS4 and everything like that, but that generation is over." It's just like
Yeah, and
I don't
yeah,
understand it. Like if you're doing a game for a PS4, it must mean that the game A can't be handled on PS5 or it's not ready yet and you need to put it out on the console that is on the previous gen.
yeah, and that's also been the other big sticking point for me this generation.
Mhm.
I think I can count the amount of PlayStation 5 exclusives on one hand. Like, yes, Sony has released a lot of first party games this generation, way more than Xbox, which is easy because Xbox hasn't released barely any,
That's true.
right? But most of them have been PS4 games as well, right?
Mm,
I love God of War Ragnarok. I love Horizon Forbidden West, right?
yeah,
Those are PS4 games. My favorite game of the year last year, Elden Ring, PS4 game.
exactly.
Yes, I played on PS5. I played the PS5 version. It is still a PS4 game fundamentally. And to me, it's sad that I'm just going back a little bit. When I bought my PS5, right? I unboxed it and everything.
Mhm.
I think I was done with the setup within minutes, and it didn't feel like I had crossed over to the next generation. Like,
Yeah.
when you were younger and stuff, remember you got a new console,
Oh
it
my
you were like, "Oh,
god.
whoa, whoa, what is this? This is crazy." Just from the jump, right?
Yeah.
And to me, getting the PS5 felt like upgrading my phone.
That's honestly, it's so strange that that's what it's come to for electronics because it moves so fast, so quickly. And that's what I thought was so, because I my first console was a GameCube, and then when I moved, I didn't upgrade to a next console until the Xbox One.
Oh wow.
So when I opened that up, it was like Christmas and Hanukkah and every holiday wrapped up into one. And I remember,
Everything.
yeah, and I remember when back in the day when when the consoles used to come with multiple games in them. So that console for Xbox One came with Gears of War Ultimate Edition. It came with Ori and the Blind Forest, and I was like, "Wow!" People don't realize how much promotion a lot of companies did when there were a lot of banger games that they would just put out one after the other, and there were no delays. There was none of like the hassle of trying to figure out where companies stand with the consumer because we all knew how like okay that's the company, we're the consumer, we're gonna get a quality product. But now in the gaming space especially, we don't really see we see companies being transparent only when there's a problem, and that's what I have the issue with.
Yeah. So, just going back to your earlier point, yes, this generation doesn't feel like a proper next gen because most of the games that we're getting are PS4 games, and the new games are just very few and far between, like Spider-Man. Like I had to like triple, quadruple check. Like, do I see a PS4 logo there? No, I don't. Good. Because you have to
It's
be like that
true.
now. Okay, let's have some fun here, right?
Yeah.
Demon Souls, that's PS5 exclusive. I know it's a remake, but let's give it one, right?
Yeah.
Demon Souls, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Returnal,
Mhm.
Destruction All Stars,
I'm even
and
looking.
I can you name any more?
Last of Us Part 1, I think.
You know what? Let's go with it. Sure.
I'm looking at my collection right now. God, it's sad that
Sure.
wait, no,
5.
Uncharted remastered collection, I think.
That's on PS4 as well, I believe.
PS4 as well. I'm looking through my collection right now. Deathloop was on PS4. No,
Well,
PS5 only.
there you go. But
Deathloop.
first party, we're doing first party here
First
because if we're
party.
gonna do third party, then there have been a few more. Forspoken, that trash game.
Hey.
Um, yeah,
I
that
take offense. I loved it.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm genuinely glad you did because I suffered through that piece of shit. I
I
hated that
loved it.
game.
That was, you know what? I think it's
Yeah.
only because I have like really fond memories because that was the first AAA game I ever got sent to me.
Oh, baby. But
I loved it.
it was like torture to me. But anyway, but yeah,
It's
we just named 5 PS5 like first party exclusives. If in the
yeah.
chat, please let me know if there's any more. I'm talking about first party, first party. We know there's been
Was
a couple third parties. Yeah.
Dead Space? No, Dead Space no it wasn't. Hold on a second. I'm trying not Dead
Nope.
Space.
Yeah. First
Callisto
party.
was also not first party. I'm looking at all the ones right now.
And
That
it
is
also wasn't
shocking.
it also wasn't next gen either. It was on PS4 as well, I believe. I could be wrong about that. Could be wrong about that, but it's not first party. But for as first party goes, very slim pickings this generation, right?
I need to look at the comments just really quickly because I saw some of them
Yeah.
coming in. Sean Bobko said, PS sucks, now it's Microsoft takeover. I wouldn't, I mean, I'm not about the hate for PS. I mean, it's strange because it's like, I have all three consoles, right? And I love them for different reasons, but I'm not condoning the hate in the chat for PlayStation.
Yeah.
PS4
And
gen, oh, sorry about that.
you yeah, no, you can't be proud of Xbox. Xbox for as much for how bad PlayStation is doing, in my opinion, Xbox is doing infinitely worse.
It
We
really
had Halo Infinite, right? That bombed, right? And
it was like the
what else
Fallout
have we
76.
yeah, what else have we had from Xbox?
Starfield showcases.
Nothing. Xbox has had nothing, again, game okay. Game Pass is a great service.
Yeah.
The problem is there's no games for it. Big AAA new games that you could only play on Xbox Series X. Where are those games? They're not
No,
around.
nowhere right now. I mean, like the thing is that like the major titles, and this is where I have to kind of respectfully disagree here because the major titles that we're seeing are mostly from indie developers, and I know that you're mostly a AAA person. So when I'm
Yeah.
looking at the new games that are coming out on Game Pass, I'm seeing so many different indie first party things that are coming there, and even whatchamacallit, different games that are from the 360, the backwards compatibility I feel like is Xbox's strongest suit when it comes to here. I feel like that's why people still love Xbox. That was always their strongest suit, is the fact that you could literally play a game from the very first Xbox on the Series X, like Blood Rain.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that's great and all, but where's the new stuff? I don't buy a $500 console to play old shit. I want new
That's fair.
stuff, you know? So that's my issue there. And it, again, I own a PS5 and I'll be the first person, or now it's going to change. Obviously, Spider-Man's going to come up, but for most of the generation, I would be the first person to tell people don't buy a PS5. You don't need it. You got a PS4, you're good. You could play everything
You
except for
see,
those 5 games we
this is
mentioned.
gonna be an interesting conversation. So when oh gosh, some of the comments just came in. PS4 generation is over. I feel attacked, Peter. PS4 generation has been over for a couple of years now.
I wish it was over. Tell the companies that, please, because they keep making PS4 games.
Oh man. Let's see. Sean, Sony can't. I'm sorry, but the grammar's a little bit rough there. I'm sorry, I can't read that. Those companies have changed for the next gen. We can even go into that as well. Sean also commented, now it's for them new generation. Well, the new generation is kind of got screwed over by COVID. I highly think so,
Yeah,
because you had so many delays and you had so many things going haywire during the time that we were all in lockdown that it changed the ecosystem of how games are made.
it had to because everybody had to make games from home.
Yep.
Again, I get that,
Yeah.
but as a consumer, it's still disappointing.
Right, but
That you
also as
buy.
someone who reviews the games too, because we have to look at it from both perspectives.
Yeah,
For example, when you get an embargo for a game and you have to review it, like say a week before release, and put the review up on release day, the company and the consumers are expecting two very different things. The company is like, "Oh, we want to see what this person thought of our game," but the consumer's like, "How bad is it? Should I pay for it? And is it a waste of my time?"
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's our job, right? We have to just be honest, give our specific opinion on it, regardless of what the company wants. But yeah, but again, the other thing I wanted to bring up, which I find very interesting, right? And again, some context here, right? For many years, I think for the entirety of the Xbox One console generation, right? Or that for the Xbox One,
Right.
the it became almost a joke. Wait till E3. Wait till E3, right? That
God,
was became the
right.
joke because the Xbox would not have anything for any particular year, and people were like, wait till E3, wait till 3. There was one year where when that E3 was over, people were already going, wait till the next E3. Like, whoa, we're already jumping the gun here, right? I saw the same discourse when it came to this.
Same.
PlayStation guys were going, wait till Summer Game Fest.
Yep.
Holy shit.
It's sad.
Wow. Wow. I was like, guys, we're really doing this. Like,
It's
it's just interesting to see how, you know, fanboys of either side, they're the same in the end.
Now I do have a list. Let me get that list really quickly because I took down like each game that was there at the showcase, and there are a few
Yeah,
that I wanted to pinpoint. But let me just get the list
sure.
really quickly.
Let me look at the chat real quick myself here. What's going on? Sean Bobco, Peter
So during the
JT.
beginning of the show, we got hyped. We got, I don't know about you, but I got a little bit hyped for, to see what was going on because in 2 years we didn't get really much of anything. I mean, basically what happened was, just to recap for people in the chat, Sony gave the big middle finger to to E3 by not showing up in 2 consecutive years in a row. So whenever you have that, there's a lot of discourse that happens. We just accepted it because companies will be companies and they always have ulterior motives when it comes down to it. So when I look at a company and I see what their value is and what their output is, I kind of see Sony going in this direction of not not necessarily, don't take this in a bad way, you guys, but like not trying to show up anybody, but trying to show that we have the most, we are the biggest, and we are the best. Now, as a biased Sony fan person myself, because I like Sony over Xbox to be truthful, when I was diving into what the showcase was, There was only 4 games that interested me out of the over 30 that were mentioned. This, I'm just gonna say it right now, this is shocking to me.
Hmm.
How Alan Wake, Phantom Blade Zero, Spider-Man 2, course, that is like that was the ultimate that I was waiting for. I was waiting for that showcase. And when I saw that trailer, that and Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake were the highlights. Those were the true highlights for me personally because when I saw that and Alan Wake comes out of my birthday. So equally amazing. you know.
Yeah, here's the thing with Final Fantasy 16. And again, it seemed everything that I was happy about had a caveat. Even Spider-Man has a caveat. The caveat for that one is, when is it coming out? We didn't get a release date. We just got fall 2023,
Yep.
right? Anyway, going back, right? With Final Fantasy 16, I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't want to see any more trailers. I'm already sold. Give me the game. I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to see any more. Give me the game.
yeah.
That, you know what I'm saying? Like, because that game I'm still extremely excited about. But you don't need to show me anymore. We're good. You know, we had that
Exactly.
20-minute demo from a couple weeks ago, which was badass. We're good. We don't need to see it. Also, another game I'm playing right now, but I can't talk about it. Street Fighter 6. We know this game is coming.
Yeah.
We no don't waste our time. You know, we're done. The game comes out next week. We're good. We don't need to see any more.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff here that didn't need to be there. But you're right. It's like, yeah, I think I had about the same amount of like highlights myself, about 5 games, but that's still 5 games out of like 2 hours. Excuse me, 1 hour and like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No, you have to suffer through so much.
And that was just it for me. Like, it was so strange because, like, I'll be honest, like, I said it earlier, but the first Alan Wake didn't impress me all that much. I felt like it was clunky. The controls were bad. The story was non existent and it overused the Stephen King trope too much. But this Alan Wake, this actually looks incredibly promising. Plus, they made him look like John Wick. I mean, how much better could it get? So when I saw that, I was like, wow, okay, so they're improving upon the story. They're improving upon the graphics. And after seeing that, it actually is tempting me to get it. But the major issue I have is that there's going to be no physical copy. And I know that's where you and I differ majorly on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could give your take first for those who may not know.
So, I am a physical copy collector, even when it comes to old school games, 8-bit games, what have you. I love collecting physical copy games, and I feel like the preservation of physical copies are so important when it comes to digital media. I feel like this is not only the first step because it's been happening for years now, the move to just digital. But when you see a game outwardly say, and a company outwardly say, that we are not going to be having a physical copy, it makes me worried to an extent because when I don't see a physical copy, that means, okay, what if people don't like this game and they want a refund? It's sometimes when it comes to like digital copies, you can't refund them after a certain point. So you're stuck with that game in your storage. And what are you going to delete like 60, 70 odd dollars? Like that's just insane to me. And another reason why I feel like it should have a physical copy is because let's say per wild chance you have a PS5 or an Xbox that does the branding the same way it did with God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Zero Dawn, and they have that digital code in there, it makes the value of the game without the physical copy a lot less. So they're using that as a promotional tool for digital as well. So I don't know. I'm kind of this way that way about it. Like, yeah, it's faster because it relies on SSD, but also it's for me as a collector. I'm just like, oh, ouch.
Yeah. No, I get it as a collector, but the thing is, like, for me, I stopped buying physical games or like around 2014, which is about a year after the console first came out, PS4. I Because I was always a physical guy too, right?
Yeah,
But then when I realized that the disc is just basically just a vessel to get the code, to get the game onto your SSD because it downloads the entire game.
yeah,
So I'm like, okay, the main reason I'm buying these discs is because I don't want to take up hard drive space. I'm taking up hard drive space regardless. Then I'm looking around my room, my apartment. I'm like, these boxes are just sitting here doing nothing. What am I doing, right? And then one of the so it was two separate things, right? So that happened, in 2014, but I believe it was 2012. Whenever Assassin's Creed 3 came out, right? I was ready to go to GameStop. You know, where else are you gonna go, right? So I
Yeah.
was ready to go to GameStop, as I usually do, to get a new game, right? And there was a huge snowstorm. I'm like, damn, man, I can't go to GameStop. Like, but I want me some Assassin's Creed. That was one of my favorite franchises at the time. So I'm like, I may as well just get this digital, right? And waking up the next day, because there was like, the game starts at midnight or whatever, launches, and you start downloading. I'm like, all right, let me go to sleep. You know how crazy I was waking up the next day? It was like, I have a new game. It's right there. I didn't have to do anything for it. It's just
That's
there.
that's
Whoa, this is crazy, right? So combine those two things, and also the fact that I've never been a reseller. Like, if I buy a game, I don't sell it back. The only times I've sold games back are when they're so bad I don't want them in my house. You
same.
know, I'm like, get out at like, I don't want you here. Killzone, Shadowfall, and Knack. I'm like, get these pieces of crap out of here. Those are PS3 launch.
The 13th.
Yeah, very bad. So me, I'm like, okay, I understand the whole physical debate or whatever, and I understand why physical proponents are so passionate, but this is just the way it is now. I remember when digital games first started, coming up, I think they accounted for like maybe 20% of game sales. Now they're account for like 80 to 90%. So if
Jeez.
you're yeah, so if you're a company, you're like, why the hell are we releasing these physically? So you have to see it from that perspective too. So what I think is going to happen, not to derail the conversation, but we're already talking about this anyway. What I think is going to happen is, I think physical games are going to go the way of vinyl. They're going to exist.
Interesting.
They're just going to be collector's items, like maybe specially ordered, like, hey, X company, oh my god, I'm blanking on their name. Um, they make physical games now, limited run games, right?
Oh,
Maybe
yes,
you'll
I know
have
what you're talking about.
yeah, so maybe you'll have companies like that where you could be like, hey, can you make me a physical copy of this? And they'll do it. I don't. I think what you saw with Alan Wake, and I believe they retracted it. Like, okay, we will have physical after all, but that's going to be the standard. It's already the standard on PC. Remember those big ass PC boxes? You don't
I
get those
remember
anymore.
those.
Yeah,
They still
you don't
do
get
that for
those
The
anymore.
Sims, though.
Well, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wild.
in the
But
Walmart that I go to, they still have it for Skyrim and they have it for The Sims.
and Skyrim's freaking 50 million years old. But think about it like this too. When Steam first came out, right? Like, people really didn't like the fact that the games weren't physical anymore. People were pissed. Now it's fine,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Now it's fine. So, I think this may be the final console generation where that's going to be the norm. I think next generation, I wouldn't be surprised if these consoles are just going to be digital only. As a matter of fact, if rumors are true, the PS5 Slim is going to not even have a disk drive. You could buy one, an optional one,
Jeez.
but that's the way it is. And again, I get it. Like, if these companies decide, we're gonna pull this game from the server, you're asked out.
Yep.
I get that. I finally, this is why, again, I'm a digital guy. When Scott Pilgrim came out, I bought that shit physical because I was
Yeah.
traumatized when they took my game away the first time. You know,
And that's the thing
um,
too of where I honestly like I mean in a PC alone, if you have a terabyte of storage, you can have as many
yeah,
literally games as you want. Like I think on my Steam I have almost 200 games on there. And it's so cool to be able to think like where the future is going. People might not like it, but that's where it's heading. And that's
yep.
what is so shocking to me how everyone takes all of this stuff personally. It's not a personal attack, it's just evolution.
Yeah, no, but again, I understand the passion because, if you're a physical person, you love your collection, and the thought that that may go away, I can see how that's threatening. So I get it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And to go into like completely 360, like we see on the flip side this whole kind of debate that goes on between single player and co-op and all that kind of stuff all the time. We saw specifically that Insomniac stated that the Spider-Man 2 will not be co-op. It will only be single player, which I thought that was really cool, We need more single player games in the horizon. Like I love co-op with certain games like Soulsborne games and stuff, but my God, just give me a single player game any day.
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't know Insomniac made that statement. When you were saying that, the first word that popped into my head was good.
Yeah.
We don't need it to be co-op. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
You
because
know.
they had a thing underneath whenever the showcase was happening, and I think they had it like on their Twitter or something. I'll have to check. Of where it's not going to be co-op, it's just going to be single player, and that made me
Yeah,
so
no, don't
happy.
stop it. Like, we could still have our single player games, okay? I guess in that sense, I'm like the collectors. I'm like,
Mm,
can you please not take away my single player games? You know,
yeah.
I don't think they're going to go away, but you do see a lot of service games as this show was proof of. I'm like, you saw a lot of service games. Everybody's trying to be the next Fortnite, and this is the thought I wanted to share with you, and I'll probably tweet this out later, probably get some crazy comments. I think Fortnite has ruined the gaming industry.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely, I
I and
agree.
to me, it's a crazy statement, but it makes sense, right?
It does because
Every
that's what gave
Yeah,
rise to co-op and battle passes and battle royales and all of that stuff.
yeah, I think all that stuff already existed before Fortnite, but Fortnite really coalesced it into what it is now, right? And ironically enough, Fortnite is not an original idea either. It's ripping off of PUBG, but it's kind of like Apple. Apple didn't invent the MP3 player, but
Yeah.
everybody cites the iPod. But yeah, I think Fortnite has ruined the gaming industry because every game wants to be Fortnite, right? Every game wants to be Fortnite. You could also, not to go off topic, you could also make the argument that the Marvel Cinematic Universe ruined movies. So everybody wants to be MCU.
That's true. No,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
so yeah,
I just recently got into the MCU because I have a thing for Loki. But
yeah,
when it comes down to it, there is a strong point to be made with Fortnite because after that you had oh, what's it called? You had a really good battle royale that actually legitimately had a story, which I was surprised with. Was Blood Hunt Vampire the Masquerade, and now that one's being shut down right now. They're still gonna have it up, but they're not gonna be improving on the servers or anything like that because there's not enough. What I'm assuming is that there is not enough hype around it and everything like that, which is sad
yeah.
because it's a really actually good battle royale. And speaking of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I heard that they were going to be making a second game, but apparently that has been shut down because
Yeah,
the developer, for some reason, the developer left the project. I'm unsure of the details at the moment.
yeah, I don't know the particulars either, but yeah, that game was kinda hyped because everybody really loved the first one, but that game was in development hell for a long time, and
Yeah,
yeah, the developers just, they're off the project now, so who knows what's gonna happen with that.
yeah. But the next game that I want to talk about is Phantom Blade Zero. This one looks
Yeah.
promising, and the only reason why I say that is because for me, you know how big of a Soulsborne person I am. It looked like that, and it sounded like that. If it quacks like a duck, it might be a duck.
Yeah, so my take on that is, when it comes to Soulsborne games, I'm at a point where I don't accept substitutes. If it's not from if it's not by From Software and Miyazaki, I'm good. I don't I
Interesting.
didn't think Neo pulled it off very well. There's been a couple others. I'm like, this none of these are doing it for me. The only one that kind of did it right, and it's only because it's just a little bit, is the Jedi games that have come out recently.
Oh, that's
They have
true.
some Soulsborne stuff, but I'm like, no, From Software, they have this magical touch where, like, the games are super challenging, but when you die, it's you. You know it's not the game.
Yeah.
But other games like Neo, I'm like, okay, this game's just being fucking cheesy right now. I feel like other developers haven't learned the lesson correctly. The lesson they take away is make it hard, make it brutal, make it punishing. That's not what it's all about, man. Like, those aspects are there, but you also have to remember, empower the player. When I'm playing From Software games, there I have to overcome a lot, but I feel empowered. I know I've been given the tools. If I utilize them correctly, I will persevere. I don't feel that way with these other games. So when I see something like this, I'm like, all right, we'll see how you do. What was the name of it again?
Phantom Blade Zero.
Yeah, and then my other thing is, and it's just a personal thing. I'm not really the biggest fan of these like feudal China, Japan games. It has to be very special, like Ghost of Tsushima, for me to go, ooh, okay, this is cool. Even with Ghost of Tsushima, I love Sucker Punch, but even when that was announced, I'm like, because I don't really care too much for that setting. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule. Ghost of Tsushima, a Ninja Scroll, the
Yeah.
anime. If you guys remember that, there's always exceptions. Don't get me wrong, but generally, I don't really care for feudal China Japan stuff. So I'll need to see more of this. I could be swayed. I'm not dismissing this game entirely.
Yeah.
Graphically, it looks really nice. But we'll see about that. I just yeah, we'll see about it.
That's kind of like the attitude I went in with it, and then I saw some of the graphics, and I thought that, for me personally, I thought it was graphically stunning looking.
Yeah,
But other than that, it just seemed like, okay, there's a lot of parrying going on. I love a good parry game, but when it comes down to it, the substance of the story for me has to be there. And this game, they said you can, if I remember correctly, I saw a tweet that was going on of where you could finish this game in like 40 to 80 hours. So it's kind of pushing
yeah,
that 100-hour thing. And the thing is like, I might actually say this on Twitter, but not every game has to be over 100 hours. You can have a
yeah.
really good 10 to 20-hour game, you know?
It's funny you bring it up, and I'm just circling back to Ghost of Tsushima. I remember I think I completed everything in the game, 100% in about 80 hours, and that
Wow.
felt like it was like a breath of fresh air because the games I had been playing had been over 100 hours. I'm like, "Oh, wow, that was short," because I believe that was the same year. It didn't come out that year, but there was the year when I beat Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That it took me
God.
150 hours to complete everything. And I felt exhausted. So when I played Ghost of Tsushima, which is 80 hours is a long time,
Yeah.
but that felt it's literally half of what I spent on Valhalla. I'm like, okay, guys, you can get to a point where it just becomes exhausting. But I felt that Ghost of Tsushima balanced everything right. I like even though you were kind of repeating some of the side quests and stuff, I still felt they were the side quests themselves, even though they're repeating, they were still had enough variety in them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know that I wasn't like the biggest fan of Ghost of Tsushima, but when it came down to the graphical aspect of it, I'm like, oh my god, I need to see everything of this game. It looked so graphically stunning. The
Yeah.
photo mode I spend most of my time with.
Yeah, oh, no, that you could lose hours on that. It's great. So, yeah, that game kinda remarkable. I guess in the end, I shouldn't be surprised I liked it because I really love Sucker Punch. I think they're a great studio, but, like, it did 2 things that it made me like 2 things I normally don't like in video games. I normally don't care for feudal Japan stuff, and I normally do not like parrying, but I liked it in that game. You know, g Parrying is the reason I couldn't mess with Sekiro. I'm like, "Okay, this is too much," you know? Like, respect, but I this is too much for me. And, for the old school people, that's why I couldn't get into Street Fighter 3, which is still regarded as one of the best fighting games of all time. I didn't like it because they introduced parrying. I'm like, "What the hell is this? This isn't Street Fighter," you know?
Oh, Peter just
But obviously,
commented.
because of the parrying, you got that awesome Daigo Umehara and, Wong, meme. Anyway, go on.
No, you're good. Peter just commented,
Yeah.
there's only enough room for one or two of these live service battle royale games to be successful. Fortnite pretty much, hold on a sec. Oh, pretty much cornered the market, and there's not enough peeps to keep these other games going. Interesting.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. But the thing is, like, again, people are just chasing that Fortnite money,
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I mean, I tried the game once, as Peter knows, because he it was so interesting to see how that game ran. Because for me, it just seemed overly simplistic, and there was nothing to it that really grabbed me, grabbed my attention, grabbed my energy. I literally put it down, and I was just like, "That was it." That was so underwhelming. I mean, like I know that there are people who absolutely love Fortnite, but for me, it was just like, that's what all the hype was about, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I gave it the old college try. I know some people probably like, "No, Tony, I give it more time," but I played for like a good 2 hours, me and my friend Carlos from Throwdown, and we were both like, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
It did get to a point where it's like, okay, like, so the whole goal is that you have to let everybody kill each other until there's only like a little bit of space in your round. So what I started doing is like, when you jump off, I like made sure I just float down as slow as possible. And then when I land, stay on the fringes and just move with the circle or whatever. Like, okay, if this what and at one point I was like, okay, let me just get to the where I think the middle of the map is, camp somewhere and just wait for the circle to get smaller, you know,
Oh
let them
my
come to
god.
me. But it's boring. There's nothing. But again, it's because I'm a narrative driven gamer. Like I need that to push me forward, and there is no narrative. It's just run around, shoot stuff.
That's
That's it.
yeah.
That's literally every shooting game. Run around, shoot stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
for what?
unfortunate. It's unfortunate because
Yeah,
you're
it
not
is.
challenging the player at all. Like I feel like yeah, there should be games that you can just mellow out and chill to and everything like that. But I mean like there has to be some kind of battle royale that comes out that at least has substance, and that's what Bloodlines did. Or no, I'm sorry, not Blood Hunt. But that it's unfortunate that the game got the treatment that it did. You know, there are a lot of people who are still playing it now, but that was the only one that actually had the story from Vampire the Masquerade. Because I remember playing the first game, absolutely loved it. I couldn't finish it because part of it glitched out and it's so old that, part of the bugs are just half the problem. But by the time I got finished with that and started looking at a lot of more of the games, like Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song, that was really good. The bugs, again, really big issue with that game. And for those of you who are thinking of playing it, be very careful with the controller vibration. It's violent, okay?
Whoa. Violent.
it's
Whoa.
it's violent. I had to put my controller over on my bed because it was shaking so much I couldn't hold on to it.
Oh wow, that's
Like
crazy.
there were certain cutscenes and everything of where you have to use certain powers that the character has, and whenever you get like to a certain cutscene, the controller will vibrate, and I expect that for some things, but it vibrated to the point of where like it would fall out of my hand, so I would have to put it over on the bed. And I'm just like, what is this? Why? You're gonna get people motion sickness with this.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
And then it's like that's gonna kill your battery life too on your controller.
exactly.
It's like you figured they'd be a little bit more cognizant of that, but yeah, that's nuts.
And also, can we talk about the fact that at the very beginning there was no sound in the showcase?
Oh, I thought that was just me.
Nope,
I was like,
there
okay,
was no
that's
sound
weird.
in the showcase, and for like almost a minute and a half, there was no sound. I was like, "Wait, is my sound on?" Oh, okay, there's just no sound right now.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. And then Jim Ryan shows up like, hey, everybody loves Jim Ryan. Okay.
What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? We have Metal Gear, Towers of Agasa, Final Fantasy 16. We touched on a little bit. I'm just super excited for Final Fantasy 16 next month. That's just my main thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's gonna be hype.
let's see. Okay, Assassin's Creed Mirage. Let's talk about that for a second because the first
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed I ever played was Valhalla, and that was the longest game. I think I played it for like 120 hours, and I finished it. That was the longest game I ever played, and I think that Mirage is going to be good, but it's going to do the same thing that kind of Valhalla did, but just in a different location. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Yeah, from what I understand, um, Mirage is gonna be more like the original Assassin's Creed, where they were smaller in scale. I hope
Oh,
that's the case because the last three Assassin's Creed games, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, have gradually gotten insane when it came to how large they were. Assassin's Creed games weren't like that. They used to be a lot smaller in scale. Starting with the second game, they did become more open world ish, but they weren't open world yet, right? And it was a good, in my opinion, a good balance of big world, big map, but not overwhelming you with activities. And I understand that Mirage is going to be more back to basics. And this trailer, very evocative of the very first Assassin's Creed, where you're like, in the Middle East, you're dressed up like Altair from the first game, or the first assassins from that time. So it was very deliberate what they were doing. Like, because me, I've been playing these games since the first one in 2007.
wow.
Been with the franchise the entire time. So I'm like, oh, are we going back to more of an Assassin's Creed one type of vibe? That's going to be interesting. But obviously, since the series has evolved, it's going to have to still be bigger. But from what I understand, it will not be Valhalla big. Please don't be that
That
big. It's too
that would
much.
be nice because I remember at a certain point, and I even did a playthrough of this on YouTube of where you got to like a certain section, and then the story just trails off, and you have to like connect the
Yeah.
country of Ravensthorpe. You have to connect all these different territories. And I'm thinking this game could have been done in 50 hours. It could have been
Yeah.
nicely put together, and then you come back, you reunite with your brother, and then that's it. All good to
Yeah.
go.
No, yeah, no, you're right because even if you just stick to the critical path, it is a long game.
Yeah.
It is a long game. So yeah, I hope that Ubisoft is true to their promise and Mirage is going to be back to basics, smaller scale Assassin's Creed. Like yeah, like again, the Assassin's Creed games weren't about that before. They used to be really dope, open world ish action adventure games, right? With a really tight story to tie it all together. But it's lost its way ever since. I know you haven't played the other games, so I'm trying to be not spoil too much, but after a certain pivotal character passed away, the series lost its footing,
Oh,
you
I think I
know?
know which one you're talking about because I'm dipping my toe into the Assassin's Creed pool more so, so I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, but yeah, Assassin's Creed, that was a great I remember, like, 'cau and it's gonna sound really weird to people now, but it's like when you started the first game and it was like you're playing a game within a game. That was a trip.
Yeah.
Like it explained
Yeah.
why there's an HUD, why you're able to die and come back. Like, well, like that narrative was nuts back then,
Yeah.
you know? And obviously the series strayed away from that eventually, but that first one was crazy because when you're outside of the animus, you're just a regular person. There's no
Exactly.
HUD, none of this stuff, you know.
But that was
It's so
wild to
cool.
me though, because whenever you got to the last part of Valhalla, now keep in mind, this was my first experience with it. So everything
Yeah,
talking about like Desmond and all these kinds of
yeah,
things,
definitely,
that
yeah.
was new for me. So I'm just like, wait a second. And it got emotional. I'm not gonna lie. Like they actually pulled at the heartstrings in Valhalla because it kind of rerouted you back to what the first game was, if I'm accurate with that. Like it
Yeah.
rerouted you back to what his experience was. So I'm like, okay, there's actually like a really good story here, but it took like over 100 hours to get there.
I know. Yeah, yeah, and the story that takes place outside of the Animus,
Yeah.
even though I feel they're drip feeding it to you, it's still compelling me. I'm like, I want to see
Yeah.
what comes next. And now we know what would buy. What's his face? Hasim, I believe his name is the
Yes.
character. Yeah, I was like, whoa, hold on, because remember this guy is both in the Animus and in the real world. It's like, okay, this is nuts. You know.
Yeah. And
So
speaking
looking
of
forward,
that,
yeah, I'm definitely excited about that for sure.
yeah, and speaking of that with stories and everything, I want to get into miscellaneous topics since
Mhm.
we are almost at the hour right now. This year, have there been any games that have either one made you really disappointed so far or really really hype?
I already mentioned it earlier on.
Oh, Forspoken.
Forspoken.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I was excited for this game. I remember when they first announced it was Project Athia. I was like, "Whoa, this looks crazy!" And it was also running on the Luminous engine, which powered Final Fantasy 15, which I love. And I'm like, Square Enix, oh, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. And then leading up to it, the more I saw of it, like, because I had a hands-on like presentation, behind the scenes and stuff.
Oh,
And the
nice.
more and I played, I'm like, I don't know about this. Then they showed I got to see a couple more, went to a couple more events. I'm like, I don't know. Every little thing kept whittling it away, and then the game came out, and to me it was just a slog. I couldn't stand it. I didn't
Interesting.
think the controls were good. I thought the main character was fucking annoying. The story was interesting. It's just the way they told it was very bland. I'm like, you guys have something cool here. This premise is awesome. You just didn't capitalize on it. So that was disappointing. And I really liked Jedi Survivor. I beat that. I reviewed that as well, but I don't like it as much as the first game, just because the first game was kind of unexpected to me. Yeah, because when that game, I tell you this, when it first came out, I actually skipped it because I was
Really?
so upset with Star Wars at that point as a franchise. I loved Star Wars growing up when I was a kid, right? That was my franchise. Then Disney took it over. We had The Force Awakens. Oh, this is cool. We're reminding people why you love this franchise. Rogue One came out. This is cool. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Then the Last Jedi came out and it killed it for me. What a
Interesting.
disrespectful movie that was to fans. But so when that came out, I'm like, no, I don't care about this franchise. I'm done. I don't want to be hurt again, you know? So when Jedi Fallen Order came out, I was like, whatever, I don't care about this. And then I think maybe a year after the fact, it was on sale during Christmas. And at that time, enough people were telling me, Tony, check out Mandalorian. Mandalorian is awesome. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll check it out. Begrudgingly, you know, and it was fucking dope. I'm like, oh wow, this is cool,
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm like, let me check out this Jedi game. When I played it, I'm like, oh my god, I would have loved this if I played it when it came out. It was so good. Like, because my favorite genre is action adventure, which has the three pillars, right? Um, awesome narrative. Actually, excuse me, it's a okay. Pillars of gameplay all centered around a narrative, right?
Right.
You have exploration, platforming, and combat, right? And
Oh,
and
wow.
that's kind of broad because think about it like this, right? In it in under the way I see it, Tomb Raider, God of War, and Spider-Man are all action adventure games, even though they're very different from each other, right?
Right.
But they have those tenets. It's those three pillars mixed in with an awesome story driving it forward. Love that game, Jedi Survivor. But the second game, even though it's good, I think it didn't have that surprise. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm getting now, you know. And
Interesting.
then right now, I'm playing Street Fighter 6. I can't say too much because I'm under embargo, but at the same time, the game's been in beta forever, so I guess I can say some stuff. And I gave a hands-on impression. Interesting with Street Fighter for me, right? I just realized this yesterday. Okay, but caveat: I've been
Yeah.
playing Street Fighter since 1991. I was like 11 when that came out.
Nice.
That blew everybody away. I'm like, holy shit! You know, like if you were there, you know, for those who were there in the arcades, I used to go to arcade all the time, play a game. But I'm like, oh, I just noticed something. Street Fighter 2 obviously hooked me. Love Street Fighter 2. That was the game. Street Fighter 2 and all its iterations were my main games during the 90s, right?
Oh, wow.
Street
Okay.
Fighter 3 came out, lost me. I'm like, this parrying shit, this is stupid. Ruined everything for me. Street Fighter 4 comes out, I'm back in. I'm like, yeah, Street Fighter 4, we're back to basics. We got rid of that parrying nonsense. Awesome. You know, Street Fighter 5 comes out. I'm like, where's arcade mode? What is this nonsense? Lost me. And I'm playing this. I'm like, World Tour mode is cool. Arcade mode is back. I'm back on Street Fighter. So I keep skipping Street Fighters. It's very interesting, you know?
That's funny,
Um,
actually.
yeah. Again, I just realized this yesterday because I'm playing the game. I'm having a blast. I'm like, oh, I like this. I like the even number ones, but now I'm afraid of seven. What's gonna happen with that?
Street Fighter
But yeah, but
7. They're
yeah.
gonna have
Um,
more parrying and less arcade.
God, but yeah, but yeah, this year has been the year I've played the least amount of games. Those three games I just named to you are the only games I've played this year.
Oh, wow. Oh, gee,
Yeah.
really?
Yep, that's it. Just those 3 games. My interests are elsewhere nowadays. I'm like, gaming since gaming isn't really giving me what I want,
Mhm.
I'm doing other stuff, you know?
Interesting. You see, and it's funny to me because you started as a gaming journalist and now you're
Yeah.
primarily a tech journalist.
Mhm.
So it's
I do gaming on the side, and it's kind of funny even at work, because we do have a weekly column. What have you been playing lately? I think I've only written like 2 of them this year. I'm like, I'm not playing anything. Yeah, I'd rather work on my manuscript for my novel. I'd rather build some gunpla. I'd rather do something else. I don't really want a game right now.
yeah,
But it's also because there's nothing compelling me. But you already know when that Final Fantasy 16 drops,
I'm so excited.
that's all I'm going to be doing
I'm
for like a
so
month.
excited. And for those of you who have been like literally nagging me and asking me, I can't talk about it too much, but yes, I will be playing Final Fantasy 16 on YouTube.
Yes,
It's listen, when I saw that trailer, I got butterflies. I was like, "Oh my god, literally this is everything I wanted from a Final Fantasy game."
yeah. I still remember the first trailer they showed. Like when you had, like they were serious when they killed a freaking chocobo in front of you and the
I
blood
know.
smeared the little kid. I'm like, whoa! Like how you have chocobo blood on a kid? Like you guys are wilding out right now. This is great, you know.
You know what this
But
calls
I'm a
for?
Final Fantasy stan. I'm a stan. I'm buy these games. I'm already gonna get 17, 18. I'm already unless it's online, then fuck that shit. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the games. I love Final Fantasy. I even like Final Fantasy 13. People don't like the game. I liked it a lot. You know.
Yeah.
They give me what I want, and I'm gonna be very happy with that. So even though I haven't been gaming a lot,
Mhm.
I feel the games, except for Forspoken, fucking trash,
Oh no.
that I have played have at least been good. And obviously, so we got Final Fantasy 16, and Spider-Man 2. I think that's a pretty good year, you
Yeah,
know.
it is. I
And
mean,
maybe
it's
and maybe Starfield, we'll see,
eh,
you know.
yeah, and then the fans are just gonna have to fix the game after it releases.
Yeah, and see, you hit it right on the head. That's why I said maybe Starfield, because I actually like Bethesda games, but I also don't like Bethesda games. You know why? You know why, right? That duality. I love the world, the exploration, the crazy adventures, but the
Exactly.
goddamn bugs.
I don't know. Sometimes you're so humorous, you can't help but to laugh and think of it like a small child in your care, and it's just like, oh, you're adorable. But then it grows up and it's still got bugs, and you're like, well, shit.
Yeah, like why? Why are you doing this? Like I thought you knew, man. I thought you would have learned.
It's like make good choices, please.
Yeah, seriously.
So
But
there
yeah,
was
go ahead.
another thing that I wanted to mention because for my games that I think one that I loved and one that I can't stand, people are gonna be kind of pissed off at me for this, but
Uh-oh.
here we go. Okay, so the one game that I really enjoyed was I my heart wants to say Resident Evil 4 remake, but I enjoyed it, but not to the level that, you know, I'm about the one I'm gonna say, and I have to double check where it is in the
Oh,
list
thank you
over
for
here.
reminding me. That's the other game I played, but I can't say anything. I can't fully say anything about it because I haven't finished it yet. But what
Oh,
I played, really good. And this is coming from a guy who was skeptical, who because I think Resident Evil 4 in its original form is perfect. I'm like,
mhm,
if you change this, you're gonna screw it up.
yeah.
But so far, and again, I'm not super deep into the game, but I'm like, wow, you guys actually managed to make this game simultaneously feel familiar and brand new. This is
Yes.
cool, you know. So when I go back to revisit, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be in one of my top games of the year. Resident Capcom, just going back to Capcom,
Mhm.
they've done it, man. I remember
They
during
have.
the PS3 era, they were floundering hard, right?
Yeah.
People were like, "Yo, what's going on with Capcom? What's going on with Capcom?" And then with PS4, they started firing on all cylinders. The one thing they were missing was the fighting games, right? That Street Fighter 5 eventually became a great game, right? But it took a while to get there. But I'm like, okay, Street Fighter 6 is already good from the jump.
Mhm.
You got Resident Evil, you got Monster Hunter. You guys are killing it right now. So I think Capcom is back, and that makes me so happy because
Same.
Capcom growing up was my favorite company. My two favorite companies back growing up were Capcom and Konami, right? Konami, they're fucking lost now. I have no hope for them. But Capcom, and I think it's because Capcom is still a family owned company.
That's
So
true.
they
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna pivot things here. Let's give fans what we want. They're not really beholden to anyone.
Exactly. And then, and you know, the thing is like I looked at it and it's not a game that came out this year, but when I played Returnal, that is my favorite game so far this year that I've played.
Okay, yeah, yeah, because you played this year.
Yeah.
Returnal, I because I don't like those type of games,
Okay, that's
but I
fair.
respect it. I respect what it does, you know?
Yeah. And that's that for me, like the story, the psychology, the very it did horror correctly finally. Like for me, I was
Mm,
like, oh, thank freaking goodness that they actually knew how to do excuse me, a slow burn game that had unique horror elements while keeping me on my toes. It's so difficult to do when you're writing a game story out because you have to think, how can I not give everything to the player all at once but still keep them on their toes?
yeah.
So
Yeah, my thing is I just don't like dying and losing all my shit and then redoing over and over and over again. I was like, I don't have patience for this.
I'm used to it. I'm a masochist with Souls games. What can I say?
Yeah,
But the other
but
game,
for Soul games, I still feel like I'm making progress.
yeah,
Right? I still feel like I'm making progress with no those, why am I roguelike games? I'm like, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. That's also why I didn't like Hades. People are like, "Tony, you gotta play Hades, you gotta play Hades." I play Hades for an hour, I'm like, "I'm done. This is bullshit too."
oh, you see, I loved Hades.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah,
first roguelike game I ever played, actually.
you know what? It's funny because I'm, video game journalist and stuff, but I probably hate more genres than I like, which is hilarious. I remember a couple weeks ago on the questions podcast, when you throw out your questions, we were asked like, what are some things in games that'll turn you off immediately. And everybody's looked at me. It's like, Tony, you got the biggest list probably. Go ahead. You know, there's a lot of things. I'm like, no, that's a deal breaker for me.
Oh
You know,
man.
like, and there was a lot of deal breakers in this presentation. Online only first person shooter. Nope. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skip.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because I kind of felt like you for a little bit whenever I had two disappointing games for me in a row this year. First one was Redfall. That was a disappointment for me.
Oh, you are not the only one. You know. Oh
It's
my god.
weird
Yeah.
because it's like I went in. I don't know if you saw my first impressions of it, but whenever I went in, I played co-op for it. Co-op versus single player, co-op wins for that game absolutely, but it feels so empty. There's so much I could have done with it. There's so much as it said in Step Brothers, there's so much room for activities. You know, like everything that is in that game has so much potential to do so well, and I feel like there's so like I don't know, it's just so empty and it's so underutilized and under like I don't know. It was disappointing. That one, and this is one of where people are gonna hate me. Dead Space remake.
Uh-oh. What was your problem with that one?
So it was just boring. The story was non-existent for most of it.
Wait, did they like take out the story from the original?
No, they didn't take out the story for the original. I just didn't like the story. It was very poorly paced. And for what happened was, it went there are 12 chapters in the game, right? So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh, this is a slow burn story. It's going to be pretty neat. I actually just finished the playthrough of it last night, and my video goes up for it as the second video of the day for the final part of it. So spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't finished it, you know, you've been warned. But went through the first chapter. Time goes on, the fourth chapter comes along. Time goes on, you get the seventh chapter. You get little bits of story here. An intercom, fixing something again. Fight zombies. Got another intercom. It was so predictable by the end of it, and I was just like, when is this gonna be? I was just glad it was over by the end of the game.
Did you feel that way about the original? Did you play the original?
I played almost 3 hours of the original, and by the end of it, I was so tired of the control work. It was so bad. But
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's just so you may just not like the fundamental game. It could just be that.
yeah, because the story itself is it's okay. The marker was an intriguing point of where you can literally like you can see, you know, loved ones and everything that have been dead, but you can have them, you know, as like accompaniments, you know, like you can literally see them. But I thought that was kind of interesting. It got good by the end of the game. Literally by the very last chapter, by the 12th chapter, that was when it was the most interesting, and it's not supposed to be like that. Like when I played the first 3 hours of Dead Space 1 for the original, it had all sorts of bugs littering it. It was, I feel like, kind of like Redfall in a way. It was very underutilized. And in the remake, they changed that completely. They made a lot better graphical work. The voice acting I think is my favorite part from the remake because they made the voice acting just absolutely incredible. But it was just the story. The story I just could not get into.
Interesting. Yeah, because I like I know with the first game, the even though I personally like the story, that wasn't the main thing that kept me going with that. It's like I want to see what the next spooky set piece is. I want to see what's
Yeah,
going on. You know, like
yeah,
that's what kept me going. So this game has that because yeah, the story is very bare bones. You know, it's just
yeah.
Isaac go here, Isaac go here, go there. Oh shit, this thing's happening. Isaac go over here. Yeah, but like I think the tension is what kept me going more than anything. Like this is crazy. You
There was
know.
tension. Sorry.
Yeah, in the first game, the original one, there was. That shit was scary. I don't know, I can't speak for the remake, you know?
I mean, this is where I feel like I'm kind of the odd man out because when I think of horror games, it's so difficult for me to get actually into a horror game because of how desensitized I actually am to a lot of horror.
Yeah.
So I look at it from more of an analytical standpoint now because I just don't get scared. There was a jump scare at the very end of the game. I didn't even flinch. Like
Oh, wow.
I was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, and I'm just over here giggling, and people are gonna think that I'm just some sort of like creep or something. It's so weird to me because it's like the entire thing that I think I had the biggest issue with Dead Space was, you know, first of all, there were bugs that were littering that game. It was, you know, weird. But also the motion of where I would actually get nauseous at certain points when you would have the zero gravity. That I thought was kind of strange. And I checked, I didn't have motion blur on. So I was like, is
Yeah,
this game just making me nauseous? Is it the motion blur? What's going on here? So it was very strange. I think that's also something that put me off to the game as well, is it made me very nauseous at certain points.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how it differs from the original because I know some people didn't like those sections. I did,
Oh,
in the
interesting.
original game, but I don't know how they are now.
Yeah, I
But
didn't get
I'm not really yeah, I'm not really sensitive to motion sickness. Like just to really bring it home is like I went to this one VR event back when VR was still kind of a new thing, right? And everybody I tried the headset on, they felt kind of woozy and sick and shit. I was the only one. I was like, no, it's fine. You know, like it didn't bother me at all.
And that's the thing too, where like it's going to be obviously very subjective for every person.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, besides Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song, that I really got nauseous over something. And I actually had to take a break from filming the final episode because you went into so many zero gravity points of where if Isaac was turning, my eyes would just be like, oh shit, what's happening?
Oh boy.
But also, there's a question in the comments for you. I'm curious. Nam Dyer asks, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm curious to know what his thoughts are on the whole online multiplayer paywall BS that Microsoft created on the consoles.
Um. Oh, you mean like with that began with the 360, wasn't it? Like
I think
where it
so.
was like, hey, you want to play online, you got to pay us. Basically, is that what you're referring to? I know he's going to take a while to get my response, but I think that's what he's referring to. That one's an interesting one because it this is gonna sound mess up. It since it didn't affect me, it didn't matter to me, you know, because I don't really like. First of all, I didn't own a 360 because I didn't care about it. And even with PS3 during that whole era, it was online was free, so whatever. Then when PS4 came out, I was already subscribed to PlayStation Plus, so also didn't bother me, But I do like the fact that now you don't need it to play online games. I believe I could be wrong about that. Not no, you need it for some games, but like for Fortnite, since that's free to play already, you don't need it. I do think that was BS. Like there was a time where like for Fortnite, you needed to pay for the online. If you're on Xbox, you had to pay to play it online, even though the game is free to play. I think that is kind of BS. But it seems like we're done away with that, at least with the free to play stuff. But
And he
I
did
don't
say you're
really have.
correct. The
Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I answered it correctly. Good. But again, I don't really have strong feelings about it just because I'm not an online gamer. It's very rare when I play. I play like probably one online game a year. Last year it was Elden Ring, and it's always co-op multiplayer. I'm not a competitive guy like that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I hope I answered the question, but I think that was it. Yeah, I do think it's BS. The whole paywall thing, and obviously PC guys, they don't have any of that because they rebelled against it. They try to do that on PC. They try to be like, hey, you got to pay us X amount, to play online. PC community said, nope, we ain't doing that, and they haven't. So shout out to the PC gaming community. They stood up, whereas the console guys were like, okay, fine, we'll take it.
He also continued in saying, it started on the original Xbox in 2001. I'm so against the anti consumer business practices. Well, yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah,
I have such a weird take on this, possibly, and chime in to let me know what you think. But whenever I think of the term anti consumer business practices, I always think businesses aren't here to be your friend. They're
yeah,
here to give you a product. You buy the product, you're like, ooh, this is good, this is bad, and you can choose not to buy it. You can choose to love it or hate it, whatever you want. But I feel like that's why whenever people are like, we want Jim Ryan to be more human, we want him to be more empathetic. And it's like, I don't want him as a friend. As long as he keeps delivering cool shit that I'm, gonna consume as a content creator, that's all he needs to do.
yeah, yeah. I don't think that's anti-consumer to do that. It's your job as a consumer to vote with your wallet in cases like that.
Exactly.
Just like the PC guys did, or make your voice heard respectfully, though. Respectfully, you don't want to
Exactly.
be toxic.
Yeah, don't be a toxic pony.
Yep. Oh boy.
So to bring it home, to end off the podcast on a good, wholesome note, I talked about this in a casual nerd episode prior, but I felt like it was so important and so cool to mention. It's still something that I'm so impressed with by a lot of Zelda fans. As a lot of you know, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released previously. A lot of you wanted me to review it, so I spent almost $90 to review that, and plus I got a shirt. So yeah, I don't know why it was $70. There's no sales for Nintendo ever, so
No, the Nintendo tax is strong.
oh my gosh, almost as bad as some parts of Manhattan. Am I right?
Yeah,
But
Jesus.
when you get to a certain point in the gaming community, there are certain little bits of hope, little bits of a light. And I saw that during the midnight release of Tears of the Kingdom. I saw fans lining up, I saw people getting ready, and it was like back in the good old days of where you would just see people out there enjoying gaming, enjoying sharing tidbits and information. And I felt like just for one night, everything was, right with the world. Even though we had all this BS going on with Sony and Nintendo and PlayStation and the Xbox and all this kind of stuff, for one night, fans rejoiced over the fact that a game was releasing, and I didn't see a single like really negative thing go on Twitter because all my friends were sharing the fact, no, I'm online. I'm like 30th in line. I don't know if I'm gonna get this extra thing, or like I'm here. I just waited with my son like for 40 minutes and we finally got it. Like it was so wholesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, and nobody got shot, that's good. I
Yeah.
remember when the PS3 lines, people were getting shot and stuff, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was good, even though I don't care for, Nintendo, I didn't buy Tears of the King because I did like Breath of the Wild, I thought that was one of the most
Same.
overrated games ever. But yeah, but I did notice, I'm like, "Oh, that's kinda nice," and I thought about that too, I'm like, "Oh, you're probably not gonna get that ever again." That may have been the last time you get like, maybe there'll be another big Nintendo release, but yeah, you're not really gonna see that anymore, because and
Yeah.
that was ubiquitous back in the day, game launches at midnight and stuff, but now, yeah, I was like when I saw that, I'm like, "Oh, wow. I remember when that was a thing."
Exactly. Like I feel like the only oh gosh, and this might be a little bit of a prediction, but I feel like the only way we're ever gonna see something like that again is if they go back to their roots with Pokemon Game Freak and they remaster Pearl and some of the older Game Boy titles and they make them compatible for the Switch.
Yeah, maybe, but I think a newer game will get more hype, but we'll see. But I do agree that it will probably be a Nintendo game since they're really still one of the big champions of physical games, And if you buy a physical game for a Switch, you're getting the whole game inside the SD card. It's not just
Exactly.
you're installing it. You can do that, but you don't have to, which is really cool.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Nam commented another thing. I boycotted PlayStation Plus since in August 2016 because of the online multiplayer paywall and haven't renewed PlayStation Plus ever since. But I mean, it's PlayStation Plus. You kind of have to pay for that for the online services. Um,
Yeah.
I vow that if Sony continues to lock online multiplayer behind a paywall, by the time PS6 becomes a thing comes out, I won't get the PS6. Okay. I mean,
Oh,
that's the thing about. Uh, I mean, like, I don't mean this to come off mean in any sort of way, but that's a whole thing of where, like, it's not the company's job to placate you. It's not the company's job in order to make you feel comfortable. They have to do business and they have to do things according to, what their business is and what they have to do to survive as a company. So, I mean, PlayStation Plus is kind of like the Game Pass of PlayStation, right? So we don't see Game Pass getting any of the flack, but we see PlayStation getting a lot of the flack for PlayStation Plus and a lot of these things I've noticed over the years. Or over I think the year it's almost been a year that they've been doing this for. So it's not their job to make you happy. Like it just isn't.
yeah, no, it really isn't. Their job is just to get money out of you.
Yeah.
And it's your job to decide if you want to give them your money or not.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what was it? Oh, I thought that they commented another one. Oh, I know that these companies aren't in the business to be our friends, which is an example of why these companies don't really care about us gamers. They care, or else they wouldn't be doing the games that they're doing currently. I mean, I don't think that it's a stretch of imagination to think that, if Zelda Breath of the Wild didn't do so well by consumers, they wanted to make Tears of the Kingdom. So,
Yeah.
there are fans in every sector, so they do care about the gamers. But when you go to a more corpo side of things, then they're doing things to make the business survive purely. That's an
Yeah.
entire aim of what corporate does. So if you want to say that corporate doesn't care, yeah, that's fair to say. Corporate only cares about the money. But when you talk about the developers, that's completely different because they actually
Yeah.
do care.
Yeah, the developers care, the publishers, they
That
just want your money.
we saw what happened with Cyberpunk. We know that publishers are benefiting right now.
Yep.
But Tony, is there any last stuff that you would like to talk about, or that you feel like you just want to say onto the ether for all of the Xbots and the ponies and everybody who's listening?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything, but it's like, yeah, I know it's been, a rough generation for, particularly for people who want AAA games. It seems like we may finally start getting them. But yeah, I wish I could say something more positive, but I've just been so like negative, I guess, for lack of a better term, about this generation. Again, there's a reason I've only played 3 or 4 games this year. It's just not a lot, you know. So I just hope things turn around, and we start getting the type of games, that I like, and
Yeah.
for everybody else who's enjoying games currently, who's the opposite of me, please don't let go of that feeling, man. Keep playing those games, keep playing those indies, love them, because somebody needs to enjoy something that's coming out of this generation. It ain't me so far, but if you're enjoying it, don't let my negativity uh, make you feel like you're wrong. You are not. If you're, I envy you if you're enjoying gaming so far.
See,
It's just
and
not doing it for me at the
I
moment.
completely understand your perspective, but like I have to say, like I feel like a little kid in a candy store this year because I've been enjoying gaming. So I think this is the most I've enjoyed gaming is this year.
Oh wow, we're
Yeah.
on opposite ends. Like I notice every year, it's like it keeps ticking down for me. I'm like gaming is not even a main hobby for me. That was my main hobby. The reason I got into this industry because I love gaming so much. I'm like, how do I make money off of this? How do I get into this? I love gaming so much, and gaming has it's just been letting me down for like a good 6, 7 years now. It's kind of upsetting, but there's always little gems. So that's something
Yeah.
at least.
But Tony, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. I really honestly I'm so glad that we were able to talk about the PlayStation 5 or the Sony Showcase, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it at this point, because I honestly feel like
The
we should
slow
just
chase. That's what I call it.
we should just wait for Summerfest.
Yeah, right. Just wait for Summerfest, people. Here you go. Oh, by the
Oh,
way, I tweeted out Fortnite is ruining gaming, and yeah,
let's go.
yep, it's already. It didn't take long. It didn't take long at all. Oh man.
Let's freaking go. I got you on that retweet
Yeah.
though.
But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Always great chatting with you. And just being part of. I love seeing your growth. I remember when we first started talking, which was last year. You were already doing really well, but now you're like blowing up. It's amazing to me.
Oh, I appreciate that because the support from you means the world, and I'm honestly so. And I don't mean to sound cheesy, but it's gonna come out that way. I'm so humbled by the fact that we got to connect and we got to, you got to kind of impart your expertise and make me grow more as a writer and more as a content creator. So I really appreciate you. It's really humbling.
Yeah, definitely. And then, and in turn, I'm glad I talk to you frequently because it's like, hey, Tony, try to try to rekindle that spirit. The way you talk about gaming, that's how I used to feel about gaming. So it makes me, it reminds me of why I got into this stuff. So I love that infectious spirit that you have. It's amazing. We need more people like you in this industry, more positive people, but who also keep it honest. I think there's a lot of fake people out there, and we need more people like you just who are very sincere and very humble about stuff. I appreciate you.
I appreciate that. That really means a lot. And just as we're about to leave off, we have two more comments. I would also say Fortnite did ruin gaming. Great minds think
Yeah, they
alike.
did. Yeah.
Boss, hey boss, what's going on? It's tough to get into games when you limit what you like. I understand when people don't like certain types, but sometimes you need to branch out slowly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, by the way, that's the thing though. Think about it like this. I've been a gaming journalist for like almost 12 years. I've played every single genre out there. I've mostly actually reviewed indie games, right? I don't limit myself. I've been exposed to all this stuff, but you also can't like something you just naturally don't like. Think about it like this. You could cook the best salmon on earth for me. I still won't like it because I just don't like salmon. I could appreciate what the work that goes into it and all that. I could appreciate it for what it is, But if you don't have a natural predilection for something, you
Mhm.
can't force yourself to like it. That's just what I feel like a lot of people are being dishonest with themselves, saying they like something when they don't. I'm just being honest. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't think that's limiting. I'm just being honest with myself, you know? So it is what
Yeah.
it is.
And that's fair. I mean, like, I honestly, like, I would put myself as not, excuse me, not liking sports games and not liking racing games. I can't stand either of them.
Yeah, again, you could appreciate the work that goes into them.
Oh, yeah.
But you could put the best racing game in front of you, it just won't click. It just doesn't work like that. Some
Exactly.
people, everybody's different. Not everyone's gonna like the same things. Again, I played so many indie games, great indie games. Not a single one has ever hit me the way as AAA does. That's just the way it is,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's perfectly fine. Like there are preferences, and I feel like people need
Yeah,
to understand. Like there are a lot of people who don't get that if you don't like something, it's not the end of the world.
exactly.
So, but again, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. You guys, all of his stuff is going to be down in the description below, so you guys can check out Tony's articles and his stuff on Twitter. He writes some very zesty tweets, so I would recommend it. So. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a good night. If you like our faces and what we do, please be sure to hit that bell and subscribe. I make videos every day here on YouTube. But you find your worth in the waking world, your hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I'll see you all in the next video. Umbasa.